Good morning, Year 13. I'm just going to talk you through what you need to do in today's lesson and indeed Friday's lesson, just to keep track with those who are in school. So remember, we were looking at the 1970s. We were trying to decide whether this was a key turning point, and we were going to argue that it was, in the sense that Red Power continued to be a force for change, and indeed the federal government finally started to be much more positive towards Native Americans, abandoning its policy, its 100-year-old policy of assimilation. So I'll just talk you through what you need to do on the next couple of slides. Okay, so we've already completed the first column and explained the turning point in the sense of federal government action and how progressive federal government action's been for Native Americans, returning self-determination, returning some land to them, empowering them. Obviously, the middle column is where you've got to consider that partly this change in government policy was partly due to continuing Native American activism. But you've also got to be careful, you have to be nuanced. Some of this Native American activism was quite negative, and there is an argument put forward by some historians that it actually slowed progress. So when you read page 209 and 210, you need to note down what actions were taken by the Red Power movement and how they probably had an impact on federal government and its changing policy, but also a little bit of nuances in order. The final column is where you bring in again more Native American activism. This time it's a group called NARF and campaigns in the Supreme Court. Remember, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States. It's going to make rulings on constitutional issues, and Native American tribes go again to the Supreme Court seeking to re-establish the rights that they believe they have in law. And this time, as you read those case studies, you'll see that the Supreme Court is much more sympathetic, and you can argue, therefore, that there's a turning point in terms of the Supreme Court and the legal position of Native Americans in the 70s and continuing into the 1980s. So you need to complete this table that you already have. Then I'll talk you through your task, which will probably be Friday's task. So we've completed these grids before, but you need to continue getting your view from the plane so you can see the really big, significant issues. And if you look at the next slide, I've included a framework for you to do that. So hopefully now you'll have enough information to track the regression and progress that we see in the 50s, 60s and 70s across our themes. And again, on the next slide, you can continue to track that progress through into the 1980s. But on the next slide, don't put anything in the concluding column. That will be next week's lesson. Okay, thank you.